It's a lovely bright sunny morning today. It's a Friday, and in our normal lives today would be cake bake at my place of work, where different departments take it in turns to bring in cakes, and we all as a staff make an effort to go down to the staff room and share some cakes at break time. However, with the situation as it is at the moment, we can't do that, but we're going to meet up online on a meeting channel, and I thought it wouldn't be good if I didn't have a bit of cake to show them while we're having our break time. So I thought I'd make a Swiss roll this morning. Not a lot of ingredients in a Swiss roll, but there's a bit of technique involved. Something that hopefully you would enjoy eating as well as the rest of your family. So I am doing this recipe. It's usually 3 eggs, 75 grams of flour and sugar. However, I'm going to try using a little bit less because I'm aware that as I'm not physically at work and only working from home, over time I'm going to put on a lot of weight if I carry on eating as I normally would. So smaller portions for anyone like myself that wants to just watch a little bit what they're eating. So, Swiss roll. Preheated the oven to 200 degrees, gas mark 6, and made sure that, oh, my bread maker's just gone off. I've run out of bread and don't want to go down to the supermarket because we're not allowed to unless it's an emergency, obviously. So I've dusted down the bread maker. We'll see how that goes later. Preheat your oven. The next thing you want to do is to get some flour. You need 50 grams of flour. Generally, in a Swiss roll, you'd probably be recommended to use plain flour. However, if you've got plain flour, use it, sieve it well. With the self-raising flour, which I'm going with today, it just gives it a little bit extra, it gives it some raising agent in there and gives it that, hopefully, better chance of it working. So if you've got self-raising, use it. If you haven't got self-raising, go with plain. I don't know what this would be like with bread flour, if that's all you've got at home, but maybe give it a try. Now, I don't very often sieve things, however, it is good to sieve things because it aerates, it gets rid of lumps, and will hopefully make cakes lighter and fluffier. But on a Swiss roll, I always do sieve. I've done that onto a bit of greaseproof paper, which you're going to see what I'm actually going to use it for in a minute. But I'm going to put this flour that I've now sieved back into a container so it's ready when I need it in a few minutes. Now, this piece of greaseproof paper I'm then going to line my tin with. This is a 2 egg mix that I'm trying today rather than 3 egg mix. So the size of the tin I'm using is about 28 to 30 centimetres by about 20 centimetres, so 25 by 20. If you were going to do the 3 egg mix, it would obviously need to be a little bit larger, and you do need a bit of a lip on the side so that this cake can rise and not flood over the edges. So to line this tin, making sure that my greaseproof paper is fitting in there, which it does. I'm going to mark with my fingers where the corners are on the paper, and then just do a little cut downwards to the corners. I've done those 2 there. Now, mine's going to go into an electric oven. If yours was a gas oven, you would want to trim these edges down a little bit so that they didn't catch fire. That obviously would be awful. And then this side here now, I can see I've put a little bit in this corner where it isn't actually going to be covered, just there. But I'm sure I'll be able to get the cake out with the other 3 corners intact. So again, just cutting down to that corner where I've marked. That's then lined and ready. Now, the nice thing with a Swiss roll is there's no fat involved, so you don't need any margarine or butter in this. However, margarine or butter helps the keeping quality of a cake, so it will make it stay fresher for longer. So another reason for only doing two-thirds of the mix is actually that it won't keep as long as a normal sponge might keep. So hopefully this will get eaten up nice and quickly while it's still fresh, and there'll be less waste. So the ingredients then, 2 eggs, they're going to go into my mixing bowl. Because I've handled the raw eggs, I'm going to go wash my hands quickly. Just put that egg in there. Oh. And to the 2 eggs, I'm going to add 50 grams of sugar. Obviously, I've just used the scales for the flour, so I need to turn them off and then back on again. And I need 50 grams of sugar. Caster sugar is fine. Granulated you could try, but it has got bigger granules, so it might be a little bit interesting. 47, 49. Oh, come on. 50. And then you need an electric whisk. There are lots of recipes, but if it says an electric whisk, you could get away without using one. This is not one of them. You need to whisk and whisk and whisk these eggs and sugar until they go light, fluffy, increase in volume, and until you can do a ribbon test, which I will show you when I get to that stage. If you're trying to use a manual whisk, you will find, unless you particularly have very strong bicep muscles, I presume you need, or unless you want a very strong one arm, I think it's probably best to use an electric whisk. So I'm going to turn this on and I'm going to whisk and whisk and whisk, and you need to keep whisking beyond what you think it should look like. I'm going to try and see if we can do this by doing like a fast forward bit for you here. I don't know if that will work. If not, we'll cut it out. So here goes. So I've been whisking quite a long time now, and I've got pretty much to the ribbon stage. So if I lift my whisks up, you can see that they're leaving a little trail just for a couple of seconds before it sinks back in. If you can whisk this a little bit longer, that's great. The particular whisk I have never seems to do this very well. The ones I have at work have got slightly thicker beaters and it always seems to work better. So I'm going to take that as a pretty much there, because I can see a little trail being left as I lift the beaters through from above. So to that, you can see all my air bubbles in there. I want to try and keep those in place. I don't want to lose them, which is why I've sifted my flour so it's going to go in hopefully as lump-free as possible. I'm going to shoot the flour in, so in it goes in one go. And then with a metal spoon, you're going to try and use this part of the spoon to cut through the mixture to fold the flour into the egg and sugar mix. I'm doing this as a figure of 8. Probably there's another way to cut it in, but this is the way we get students to do this when I'm at work. And I'm just deliberately letting the spoon pivot, just like Ross in Friends with his sofa, through my fingers, so that I'm never going through the mix with the back of the spoon. I'm always cutting through with the edge of the spoon, the side of the spoon. And I'm just drawing the number 8 in the mix as I go. Now there will be a little bit of flour usually that gets stuck to the bottom, so I'm very gently going to just scrape off the bottom a little bit. I can see there's some flour, so I'm just going to scrape that off the bottom and then continue figure of 8. Now if you use a wooden spoon, or if you're too rough at this stage, your Swiss roll won't be very aerated, and all the hard work with getting the sugar and the egg to trap air, all that hard work will be gone. So very gently folding this in. Then just one more little go along the bottom, very gently, to make sure that any little bits of flour are in. And then I'm carefully going to pour this into my prepared tray. There was no oil that's gone on top of the tray, because obviously it's a fatless sponge. You don't want to be adding oil into it. And I'm going to allow this to just simply fall in, and I'm encouraging the bits that I can scrape out to go in as well. Now in an ideal world, I don't actually have the right size tin for this particular mix, because as I've said, I've made, sorry, that's the bread maker. I've made this mix a little bit smaller, so I'm going to just let this find its level. By just easing the mixture around. This size tin, looking at how much mix we've got, would have been better if we'd used the 3 eggs. But like I said, I'm just trying to not waste cake, particularly a cake that I know won't keep long. If this was something like a fruit cake, this would have a much longer shelf life than this Swiss roll will. I'm just going to bring it down to this corner here a little bit, and I'm not giving it any manual spoon or anything to try and get it into the edges. I'm just using a bit of gravity as I tilt the tin. I can see that this is going to go to this stage here, and at this point, if I go much longer than this, it'll be too thin. So I'm going to say that is where my tin is going to end, just there. If I can make a little wall, I will, with the baking paper. and that gives the cake something to grasp onto as it goes into the oven. So the oven has preheated, that is quite important. I am just going to very, very lightly just try and ease it into that corner there, and this corner down here. And even though I've tilted it, I've tried to make sure that now before it goes in, it's still got mix in all edges. I haven't got one end really high and one end really low. So that's now going to go in. As soon as this goes in, we're going to need to get the next little bit ready. Next stage, that's gone in. Another piece of greaseproof paper, and you need to sprinkle this with a little bit of sugar. The idea being that when you're, and you set a timer. Timer set for this mix, I'm going to go for about 9 minutes. If it was the 3 egg mix with 75 grams of sugar and flour, then I would probably give it 12 minutes and then have a little look at it. So I've set the timer. Another piece of greaseproof paper. The idea is you're going to tip out this Swiss roll as soon as it comes out onto the oven, so that what's on the top of the cake at the moment will get tipped onto this greaseproof paper. We therefore want just a little bit of sugar on this greaseproof paper, and not all in the same place. So just pour you out a teaspoon of sugar, spread around. And then the last thing that you can have ready is some jam. I would suggest that a lump-free jam is better, so actually strangely the cheaper jams are probably better for this than the expensive fruity jams that have got lots of fruit in. I've gone for about 2 heaped tablespoons of the jam, and I'm going to slacken it off, and by that I mean stir it. This means that when our Swiss roll comes out of the oven, we've got to work really quickly to get jam in it and roll it up so it doesn't go dry and crack. So by slackening this off, I can spread this very easily. One last thing that I'm going to need to have on standby for when this comes out the oven, that's now smooth and ready to go inside, is a palette knife. Or if you haven't got a palette knife, a knife that you'd use to butter your bread. So those you need on standby: some greaseproof paper with sugar, a couple of tablespoons of jam. If you're doing a 3 egg mix, I'd go for 3 heaped tablespoons of jam and a palette knife. Other than that, you can get cleared down until it comes out the oven. This is where my colleagues at work will have a laugh, because this is the recipe that I don't like making most. So you're going to take it out, and you almost want it to feel a bit spongy underneath, almost like it's not cooked, is all I can explain it. It kind of has a little bit of give to it and almost a bit of a crunch feel to it. You're then going to take this and turn it upside down onto the greaseproof paper that you had out earlier. And you're going to peel off the greaseproof paper from what was the bottom of the cake. This needs to be done really quickly. Yes, it is going to be hot, so if you're making this with little ones, I would suggest you do this little bit for them. When you've done that, again, really quickly, you're going to get that jam onto the Swiss roll and spread out using a palette knife. So this is why this all needs to be done so very quickly, and all we've done in advance. Spread it out. Don't worry if it doesn't look like there's masses, it will be enough. It's already quite a nice sweet dish. A little bit there. There you go. And I'm going to take my palette knife and just lightly score one of the shorter ends here. Okay, just very lightly. Not gone all the way through, but this will hopefully help me to then get this ready to roll up. I'm then going to push this little bit down where I've scored it. And then using the weight of the cake, if it hasn't gone hard, but it has gone hard, so I'm just going to cut off these side bits of the cake. You can eat those later. They'll be a bit like those biscuits, those cakey biscuit things that you have for trifles, the sponge fingers. And then I'm going to roll. This is very difficult to do to show you, but I'm going to start the roll off, and then by pushing down on top of the paper and hopefully enclosing this in, I can then put some pressure on this Swiss roll and pull the greaseproof paper away whilst keeping pressure down on the hand that I would write my letters or whatever with. I then get to the join at the end, and I'm going to leave this so that the Swiss roll is lying on top of the join, just so that it will stick together. And that's it, Swiss roll is done.